how do you address the response of, well, everything is just too PC. How can I be expected to keep up with the language changing? I love the idea of not leaving anyone behind, but I sometimes struggle when the question is posed as a reason to not do the work. If you've been on my Q&As or done any workshops with me, there's probably 20 strategies I keep repeating. So here they go. Relating in. It's a way to engage the resistance. And so when someone, again, it feels like a push, in this case, a reason not to do the work, or you feel triggered for whatever reason, if you can relate in, how are you just like that person? How are they very common to others, so that they don't feel like they're out on a limb and you're about to cut it off? And so a different relating in could say, that's a common question I get. So that you acknowledge, validate. Now, you're not saying you want them to stay there, but you're like, I think it's a great question. And to be honest, when and you might be able to tell a story. Mine would be when I was first being challenged to get sharper, more competent on issues of gender identity and transgender, gender nonconforming. I was defensive, resistant. I'm lesbian, and I was still like, what is this? And I had a lot of the transphobic thoughts about this as a phase. This isn't real. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I don't think I'm that unusual. And so I was feeling the same thing. It's like, this is too PC. Come on, this language isn't that important. The language keeps changing. So if you can find in you any time in your life maybe a different topic where you're either in the privileged identity, as I am as a cisgender lesbian, have a couple of those stories. So the bigger umbrella here is find when you feel triggered, whatever the issues are. Find a couple examples in your own life where you're like, oh, I can relate, and have them either write them down or try them out a couple times by yourself so that they're right there that you could pull out. When I've worked out and had a low caffeine, stuff comes to me, but this is end of the semester and I usually don't do caffeine, but I have a little tea here because I want to be sharp today. And so if you notice this is the current life experiences in my navigating triggers work in the roots. If you know you're stressed, you're easily triggered, you're tired, you're sick, there's just a lot going on in your life, preparing for the workshop, anticipating your triggers, and then having a couple stories can be useful. Yesterday, somebody said something like, I need to know the terms and language. And so again, I said, yeah, they're always changing. Now here's something, because again, I want to meet people where they are, engage the resistance, and have people get honest. And so you may even start, if you anticipate this is the second or third time this is going to come up, in your introduction say, and I know for me, the language is always changing around these issues. And so I used to beat myself up that I would say the wrong word. And today I just say what I know is best. And then I might ask, is that the most current term? Or say, I actually don't know how to phrase this. I want to do a first draft, knowing that I probably won't get it accurate, but if people can kind of help me that. So if you can model not having to be perfect or having the right language, or if you have a story, if someone says that, you might say, yeah, last week I said this, and someone said they preferred that term. Ooh, this happened to me this morning. Oh, previously incarcerated. I'm not sure exactly the term that folks are using, but I was just reading something this morning, and I think the term they offered was, I don't have it, but something about related to justice, or anyway, all that to say, you can tell it takes me about 5 times to learn a term, even though people are telling me. I read it a couple times, I circled it, but I can't pull it up right now. But I'd never heard it before. And I don't work, I have no competence around people who have been in our prison and justice, quote, justice system, and how to support high schools, GEDs, universities, nonprofits that are supporting folks transitioning, as well as combating all the stereotypes and institutionalized racism around voting. I could keep going. So have a story about how you're still learning language. And then also talk about how language is important. And you might also have a story about how when people use terms about me. So yesterday, someone used the word sexual preference. And they were kind of stumbling over it. Do I see sexuality, sexual? I said, yeah, sexuality, sexual orientation, ooh, yeah, don't say sexual preference. And I just kind of said it and she seemed fine, so I didn't explain. But for me, I might say people are still using the term sexual preference. And then I'd say to the group, so what's the impact when people use that term? And that might be the only term they were taught, but what's the impact? And so I'd have the group work a term that's pretty commonly known to be, at least in my opinion, old school, and then newer terms. I'm seeing people use sexuality more. So I've started using it, but I haven't done the research. I just listen to what people I respect are saying. So I'd show them how to change it, and that it's not just about PC, but that language matters. If you're working with youth, you can have people think about if you're in front of people who are K-12 or even college and you call them kids, what's the probable unintended impact? And so you might, again, tell a story about, from a privileged identity, how you have shifted your language. That one might be enough so people go, oh yeah, language matters. And then you might ask the whole group, give me an example of when language matters to you. And some people have used a term, and here's the term you prefer. And see if, again, peer to peer. Again, there's 3 ways, there's probably more, but 3 ways to think about design. One is facilitator to the whole group. That's what I'm doing now. I'm responding to your questions, but I'm giving all the information. People remember some of that, but if you can get peer-to-peer engagement, and especially if it's stories or personal examples, the chances, and I think research says, of memory is much more, because it might, A, open people's hearts, but it's someone they know, and then they'll remember. So